Guys, the genius is back. Kubo is back like he never even left. I just read the Bleach one-shot, the new chapter, chapter 687, whatever you want to call it, and Kubo has not lost his touch. I know I'm a bit late to the party, and to be honest, I wasn't really planning to do a video on this because, well, I shouldn't really be doing videos, and let me just get into it. I'm currently engaged in a training program which is very, very hectic to say the least, so I'm not exactly in a position to be uploading, and that's why I haven't done anything in the last couple of weeks. It's also why I posted that I was on a break on my Twitter bio. By the way, follow me on my Twitter, that's where you can find me. I'm not going to bother you with the details, but for the next couple of months, I'm probably not going to be able to upload anything new, even though I've got a ton of new content on the back burner that I haven't really gotten around to record because of my current situation. So this video is an exception, and that's why it's probably going to sound a hell of a lot more different than any of my other videos. But enough about me. The new Bleach chapter is amazing. I can't remember the last time I went through rising levels of euphoria as I read a manga chapter. I'm not even joking. I think Tsukimichi is probably the only other manga that's gotten me this riled up in recent weeks. Kubo is not pulling any punches. I mean, getting to the end and seeing that this is only the opening act for a brand new manga arc just amplified my excitement a million times more. I was literally breaking out in goosebumps by the end of it. And I mean, I still haven't come down, so forgive me if this is gonna sound ranty or in any way incoherent, but the Bleach manga is back. Absolutely new content that I don't think anybody expected, and it's just so great, you know? I was expecting to see the anime. I was expecting updates on the current production status of the anime. And so when Zayalapuro showed up, I was like, okay, what the is going on? What are you doing, Kubo? How are you going to wrap up this story in the last few pages now that it's getting much, much more complex? Because at the onset, we all knew this was going to be a one-shot. Never in a million years did I think Kubo would be coming out to the new Bleach arc 5 years after the completion of the 1,000-Year Blood War. I love everything about it. And let me just take this moment to shout out the guy that uploaded this chapter onto a cultured website. That was hilarious to see. Hey, Bleach fans come in all shapes, sizes, and perversions, I guess. Hashtag no judgment. The fact that it's going to be based around the Hell arc raises a lot of questions about the status of the Hellverse movie in regards to how much of it can be considered canon. There's already a ton of noticeable differences, so you can tell that Kubo is really trying to improve the concept. But I do think there's a few things he's gonna borrow from the movie, because after all, he was involved in its production. Personally, I still don't think of the latter as canon material, but whatever Kubo decides to do, I'm okay with, as long as it doesn't seem too contrived or inconsistent. I also love Zayalapuro's final words when he's talking to Ichigo about how Hell has always been around, even though nobody in the series has ever really given it a second thought, you know, making reference to the Hell butterflies. It low-key kind of feels like through Zayalapuro, Kubo was also making a declaration to the readers. Because if you think about it, it's not the first time there's been mention of Hell. I mean, obviously there's a Bleach movie to consider, but the canon manga also does bring up Hell in, I think it's first arc, but it never really goes into detail. Now this is a game changer, and for very many reasons, because this means that Hell doesn't remain unaffected by changes in the other realms of existence. Obviously, the conception of the Bleach universe is heavily inspired by Buddhist culture and their views on reincarnation. We've seen the Soul Society in the Soul Society arc, we've seen the Soul King Palace in 1,000-Year Blood War, we've seen the Human World in the Fullbring arc, we've also seen Hueco Mundo. We're about to get to see Hell if this chapter is anything to go by, and there's still one more realm of existence that we've heard of but never really gotten to see. And this is the Beast Realm, where Komamura and his Beastman clan ancestors were initially sent to live out their lives as penance for their sins. Now, if you ask me, and I know the manga hasn't even begun serializing, but this one-shot can only mean there's a lot in store for the Bleach manga. The introduction of the Hell arc has massive ramifications. If Kubo is willing to go the Hell route, then who's to say he's gonna stop there? Especially when there's so much untapped potential in the Beast Realm. Just think of how Komamura's humanification boosted his popularity, and the whole intrigue and mystery behind his people. Now imagine the Beastman clan, a group that's relatively shrouded in mystery, going to war with Soul Society. That would be epic. I know, I'm getting ahead of myself, but just think of the possibilities. The fact that Kubo is willing to explore Hell is a good indicator that he wants to tie up loose ends. And honestly, going into this chapter, I would argue that Komamura's origins and the implications of his actions in the 1,000-Year Blood War were a more immediate concern than anything concerning Hell. So for me, and this is my opinion, The manga is going to continue well past the Hell arc and possibly into a Beast Realm arc. And that can only mean good things for the Bleach fandom, who've been patiently, and I mean patiently, hoping for the return of the series. If we're talking about the Hell arc, particularly new breeds from Hell or no breeds from Hell, Kubo has opened the floodgates to the number of possible scenarios that can happen. Not only do we expect to see Yamamoto, Kitake, and Unohana, but potentially every other captain in history that has died. Maybe even the Espada. I mean, we've seen Zaelaporo, so we might get to see the likes of Stark or Neutra. We might even get to see people like Askin or Asnot. From the little we've seen, anything is possible. I mean, death is impermanent. However, I don't think we'll get to see all the characters we want to see, because honestly, I think that would just be ridiculous. For Kubo, that is. I mean, I would like to see all the characters, but logically I think he'd introduce some kind of restriction to keep the number of characters practical. Like, maybe over time they go through degradation and turn into denizens of Hell. Just spitballing. It's interesting to see how Kubo will handle it. Do these characters get consumed by malice and turn against the Shinigami, their former allies? Or will they retain their personalities and aid Soul Society to close the gates of Hell? Because I'm assuming, it's pretty much implied that Ichigo and his friends are gonna dive down to Hell. Maybe even Kazuya and Ichika will be included in that group. I know they're kids, but Kubo seems to be incorporating them into the plot of the story. Kazui particularly seems to be involved in some really fishy stuff. First of all, what the hell are those fish spirits he's controlling? It's funny how Kubo can just introduce something never before seen so casually and make it fit so seamlessly into the story. Also, Kazui seems to be leading souls in what appears to be Hell. It could be Soul Society, you never know, because the portal he opens doesn't really look like anything we've seen so far in the series. But there's this very heavy implication that he's doing something shady, something he really shouldn't be doing. And for me, this is what Kubo excels at the most, creating characters whose morality constantly comes into question, whether they've demonstrated their allegiances in the past or not. Off the top of my head, Ishin and Kisuke in the Fullbring arc, Kubo uses Genjo to plant seeds of suspicion in Ichigo and subsequently in the reader. Now, whether or not Kazui's actions are inherently good or bad, there's no doubt that he'll play a major role in this arc. Ichika, for the moment, plays more of a passive role, though I do think, considering how Zaelaporo was targeting her, she's gonna have a bigger role to play in the future. I'm not too much a fan of how Kubo is already shipping Kazui and Ichika. I get it. Ichirukia fans couldn't get their wish, so they'll have to settle for a pairing between their respective children, and I personally don't have a problem with that per se. I just hope he tones it down a little, makes it a bit more subtle so that the story can progress without the limitations of romantic development. Because ultimately they are the next generation, and I don't really expect Bleach to go in Boruto's direction, at least not yet, because I think Ichigo and Ko still have a lot to offer. But practically speaking, some plot points are going to revolve around Ichika and Kazui, so I'd rather their chemistry not be based on romance, if that makes sense. It was also great to see the vice captains, especially the new ones. Atao, I think his name is, Lieutenant of the 7th Division, seems like an interesting character. He has an amazing design as characteristic of Kubo. Looks like he can communicate with animals, so there's obviously an implied connection to Komamura, who turned into a wolf. I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it. Apparently he's also a mute, which is something we've never seen before, especially for a series whose dialogue is its main form of exposition. Everything about his Zanpakuto and his Shikai is very unorthodox. Because he can't speak, he writes the release command on his blade, possibly with Kido, and then he summons hawks that are able to devour holos down to the flesh. By the way, the Hell Holo designs are freaking awesome. The fact that their holes exist outside their bodies, and there's 2 of them instead of 1, and the chain tattoos, which are very much in line with the concept of Hell, that's a good touch. If there's one thing you can never fault Kubo on, it's his artwork and character design. But getting back to Atao, it's interesting to see if his Shikai has any other variations. Maybe he can summon other animals, we'll have to wait and see. Kubo was really trying something new with this character, and so far I'd have to say he hasn't put a foot wrong. There's also the 8th Division Lieutenant Yuyu. Never thought I'd see a Gyaru Shinigami. I guess it was bound to happen at one point or another, especially with Kisuke giving them access to human culture through TV shows. And again, Kubo was really subverting the norm with her. She has this weird, abstract ability where all she has to do is clasp her hands together, interlock her fingers, and it's like she conjures this bear or wolf. that bites off its target. It's an ability shrouded in obscurity, but it kind of gives me Yoruichi vibes. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. It was awesome to see Akon in the field, defeating a holo with science, I guess. I don't think I've ever seen him use a Zanpakuto. Kira, though, now that's an interesting one. He seems to have really embraced his inner pariah. I like the hoodie, I really do. It gives off this edgy vibe. He's never really been a people person, but he definitely feels like a totally different person to the one Renji and Momo used to hang out with. And it's kind of in line with the dark direction Kubo's story has followed. I mean, Kira's practically a cyborg at this point, so you can't really blame him for doubling down on the whole recluse thing. What else? Kiyone is really shortchanged. I mean, she's basically skewered clean through her torso. I mean, if they're going to make an example out of anyone, I guess it would be her, considering she does seem like the weakest vice captain. Either her or Sentaro. But it does kind of feel unfair, though. Another thing that was awesome was the captains. It was great to see them all in one place. Kyoraku doesn't seem to have changed, keeping up the image of a progressive leader. You know, Yamamoto would never have stopped to explain a superstition that basically tainted the reputation of an age-old ritual, whether he was aware of its validity or not. I would have loved to see Isane and Kenpachi's reaction to learning that Unohana was potentially in hell. For Kenpachi particularly, we don't even get to see him at all, which is really odd. Maybe there's only so much you can do in a one-shot, but damn, Kubo is really holding out on us. Mayuri, as usual, is the eccentric captain we all know he can be. His outfits are just out of this world. If you can look at Mayuri and not be weirded out every time he gets a new look, then you're either very numb to the abnormal or Kubo needs to make him wackier. I think it's very much in line with his personality. Kisuke, we don't get to see him, but it's nice to know that he's really applying himself by creating all kinds of new technology. And it's also nice to know that there's still some friction between him and Mayuri. Yeah, that's it. There's so much I could say about the characters and the story, but my thoughts are just all over the place. I can't overstate how excited I am for the Hell arc and for what Bleach has in store for us. Like I said, I'm really hopeful for a full-blown return of Bleach. Not only for the upcoming Hell arc, but also for the future beyond it. There's so much potential in the universe Kubo has created, and I feel like he's finally in a position to continue his story. And big up to Kubo for having the courage to continue the series. I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision considering how much the 1000-year Blood War affected his health and the controversy surrounding the end of Bleach at the time. I feel like I've been rambling for a while now, so it's probably a good time to sign off. If you got to the end of the video, leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time, stay safe. Peace.